Good evening, sir. It's a privilege and honor to have you with us today at IILM. So, just for our students to learn a few tips and life hacks from you, I have a few questions for you. Sir, if we go back in time, if I take you back in time, you have the experience from diverse fields. You went for your economics and then the computer sciences and then pivoting to management. So, what really do you think that in organization behavior, when you finally had your career plans set for you, what all insights and advantages do you think having a diverse knowledge helped you?
Coming from a multidisciplinary background, really helped me understand how to operate at the intersection of disciplines. And so I would say my background in economics and my background in sociology helped me really think about what is now a field called economic sociology, the intersection of economics and sociology. Coming then, having kind of also trained myself up in strategy. So I started to look at the intersection of strategy and organizational effectiveness. So to me, A, it was interesting. But I think also B, what happens in disciplines is they become very well established and and yet some of the most interesting questions are ones you can only answer by looking at them from multiple lenses simultaneously.
Expanding your horizon.
Yeah. So that I think to me, I think having a diverse background, I think has given me the opportunity to look at problems from multiple vantage points.
Sure, sure. I think management field has really gained from from your work. Moving ahead, I got a chance to go through the book and all the beautifully spoken about facts of how you can build it. Organizations should have a deep purpose, and that should be the thing that guides them. So, if we have to talk to our students and then motivate them to have a personal purpose, and then having that, how can they inculcate a purpose personally that can eventually help them professionally? So, as a teacher, how can I help them to start building a purpose right now, like right before they start?
I wish I had thought about purpose much earlier in my life. I think what ends up happening is we get very busy in life. As we're young, we think about what am I good at, and then we build some goals around that. So we focus on kind of like your skills and goals, skills and goals, skills and goals. Then over time, we start to ask what makes me happy, which is an emotional response. Okay, what am I emotional? What makes me angry? What makes me frustrated? What makes me sad? So we start to now ask the emotion question. So we pretty much look at life through a lens of ambition, goals, strengths, emotions. I think, it's in our scriptures, but we somehow haven't kind of got it. That if you go deeper than that, you start to ask questions such as what drives you. We ask questions like what are my values? We ask questions like what is my purpose? And I think is that those questions actually can be immensely helpful because otherwise most of the time we're confused. Yeah. We don't know how to navigate choices in life. Should I take this job or that job? Should I go into this vertical sector or should I go into a different sector? Should I go into finance or should I go into marketing? And I think if we are not intentional about it, then the job market decides for us. Well, I got a job in this company doing this. Okay, let's do it. Versus this is what I really want to do. And it resonates deeply with me personally. And I think it also allows us we show up differently and our chances of success are much higher. So I actually think it's never too early to think about what is my purpose? What are my values and beliefs? What really drives me? I think these are very important questions. I wish I'd asked them much earlier.
And then you also spoke about how personal goals and organizational goals can be bridged together and how organizations are now focusing on that.
Yeah, and I think then the question becomes one of the questions students can be asking themselves is like, how do I find a job in an industry or a company which is resonates with my own beliefs, right, in a much more personal way. So how do I create that? Because then, so you say, how do I find the right job? Where do I want to work? Right? And I think again, having an understanding of your own purpose allows you to then understand what the company's purpose is, if they have one, and see if it resonates with you. And again, I think it helps us bring out our best. That's what I think it does.
So, sir, of course, I think in your extensive research and expertise in management, you keep on talking about continuous learning, and then since organizations are changing, they need to adapt and then keep on learning. So, if I talk about you personally, so what steps and those key hacks that you take that to keep to be more relevant and then address your students in a way that they still find the lecture interesting.
This has been a personal journey for me. And I'm not anywhere near perfect. I'm still on a journey.
That's very humble of you.
I think is early in my life, I was very driven by research, publish or perish. I think I joined academia out of idealism that I thought it could be a way for me to learn how to impact the world, and I could be, whatever my research and thinking would somehow shape how others performed and acted. But then as soon as you start a career in a very Darwinian, tough system, your mind gets clouded into like, I gotta get published, nothing else matters. Teaching became kind of a side thing I did, but it wasn't the central focus of my life. And then again, as I progressed further, I realized that I was really not performing to my own potential, and I felt not doing full service to my students. I then started to do teaching driven by, again, self. What are my course evaluations? Not that we never get evaluated or benefit from course evaluations, not where I work, but it was very outcome driven. So everything was about like, okay, what do I need to do to wow the students and make them? And it's taken me a long time to really try to practice. We say nishkam karma, right? Where you're saying, if you do it out of service, then you're not looking for outcome. And I think, as I wrote this book about purpose, it was written really for myself. I had to understand what's my own purpose, why am I here? Am I here just to, publish more articles and get good teaching evaluations, or is there something bigger than that? So I think I would urge, my advice to the students is to really, when you understand your purpose, you try to do what you do with a different orientation. And it also clarifies to you what are the trade-offs you need to make in life. What is most important? What is not so important? And how do you navigate those trade-offs?
So since we're talking about change and growth, so nowadays we talk about, there are talks about sustainability, AI, and so even I think organizations are struggling to keep up. So how do you think the leadership styles can actually change with time? Because now, since it's in constant influx, so how do you think that the future leaders, have to train themselves that I need to adapt to the constantly changing world?
So I have another book coming out
Okay.
in September, and it's really focused on what leaders need to do to survive in today's world. Because I start the book with a very simple distinction in economics between risk and uncertainty. Frank Knight got a Nobel Prize in economics for that distinction. And the idea of risk is where you know the distribution of outcome. You're a finance professor, you understand risk, right? Risk-adjusted returns, you look for, how do you kind of, even scenario planning, everything about risk management. But if you think about it, uncertainty is where you don't know the distribution of outcomes. And uncertainty actually triggers a feeling of loss of control in the human brain. when we experience loss of control, it triggers a primal human emotion, which is hardwired in the amygdala, which is fear. And when you experience fear, you experience fight, flight, or freeze. And so that's why you see a lot of leaders today are frozen. They don't know what to do. And that's an active choice. And sometimes doing nothing is more risky than doing something and getting it wrong. And I think so what is the act of doing something in the face of fear? And that's where the word courage comes in. Because courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is taking action in the face of fear. And so the book is called How to Be Bold, The Science of Everyday Courage. And I think the currency for leaders in today's environment is going to be courage.
Absolutely. And I think the book will be amazing to read, considering the deep purpose has been so inspirational. Okay, so probably just last few messages for the students. Some guidance, and of course we have you here, so I think we'll make the most of it to have this such illustrious. I was personally going through your biodata and I was like, I'm too tiny a person to really ask you any questions today. But for our students, if any last piece of advice, they're going to join corporations tomorrow and be in the workforce. So something from your personal life that you think that they should take with them?
I think let me give an advice as a man, first as a person working in a company. One of the guest speakers I've had in my class is the former CEO of Xerox, and Martin. And it's interesting, all these leaders you meet, they have one principle sometimes. Her principle was, you want to be the boss everybody wants to work for. Very simple idea. You want to be the boss everybody wants to work for. I had another guest in my class, his name is Wayne Ting. Wayne Ting is the CEO for urban mobility, these electric scooters called Lime. His simple mantra was, go after the hardest problems, not the easiest problems. So that was another mantra. So as I said, be the boss, hardest problems. Another one which I learned from the late Jack Welch was, he always talked about being better than the best. And I always asked him, what do you mean by better than the best? You can't, that's illogically impossible. And how grammatically maybe also wrong. And he said, no, because the moment you're the best, you stop being better. How do you continue to be better than the best? So better than the best, go for hard problems. Be the boss everybody wants to work for, right? And I would tell you again, the last one Nelson Mandela talked about was, courage is not the absence of fear, courage is perseverance in the face of fear. And so those are a few thoughts I would.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you. It was really nice having you here with us today.
My pleasure to be here.
Thank you for answering all the questions and being a sport.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.